Good evening, I'm Bo Williams. Welcome to the 7. We're starting with a story just into the 6 newsroom. Answers about a violent encounter at an East Tennessee school. The Morgan County Sheriff's Office posting information to Facebook in the last 20 minutes. Deputies are describing this as an assault involving 2 students at Wartburg Middle. Now, we're told it happened around 1:10 this afternoon, but led to a search lasting several hours. According to the deputies, the victim was taken to a hospital with serious but not life-threatening injuries. The suspect apparently ran off but was eventually caught and will be taken to a juvenile detention center. Anyone with information is being asked to call 423-346-6262. Next on the 7 for you, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation tells us the TBI and FBI has searched an area this past week in the continued search for Summer Wells. You know, it's been more than 4 years since Summer Wells was last seen. The then 5-year-old was reported missing from her home in the Beach Creek community in Hawkins County. There has been no sign of the little girl since, and law enforcement from several agencies have worked countless tips over the years. The Amber Alert for Summer Wells is still active. No one has been arrested or charged in Summer's disappearance. Also on our big story list tonight, we are continuing to keep an eye on a handful of small wildfires burning across East Tennessee tonight. These images are from a wildfire that spread last night in the McLemore Lane area of Maynardville. Now, it sparked from a mobile home fire. That 40-acre fire has since been contained, but again, we are still monitoring other small fires in Anderson, Cocke, and Claiborne counties tonight. Next on the 7 for you, following the resignations of Blount County Fire Protection District Chief Doug McClanahan and Commissioners Benny Kirby and Tom Daffron, firefighters voiced concerns and hopes for the future of the utility at a meeting today. The resignations came after firefighters sent a letter to county leadership voicing their lack of confidence in the administration. Mayor Ed Mitchell asked Daffron to return to serve as a short-term interim commissioner and appointed former Assistant Chief Jerry Phillips as an interim commissioner as well, bringing the board now back to a quorum. At the meeting today, armed with a petition signed by nearly all of the department's full-time employees, Assistant Fire Chief Butch Campbell asked the remaining commissioner, Gerald Kirby, to resign.
Where were you when the office decided to not contact the customers who double paid the fire subscription because it would take forever? When the chief quit, resigned, retired, or just walked away, and no one told me, the assistant chief, who was supposed to be second in charge. When we held an employee meeting to discuss the department's future, and you weren't there.
In response, Kirby said he plans to finish out his term, which ends in May. Commissioners also named Jerry Phillips the interim fire chief. Next on the 7 for you tonight, the Maryville Police Department is giving us an update on the officer who was involved in a crash that happened while Vice President J.D. Vance was being escorted in a motorcade. You know, as we've been telling you, Maryville Field Training Officer Justin Brown was in a crash with a Highway Patrol SUV. This happened Friday night in Maryville. Now, Brown was seriously injured, and now Maryville police are telling us he is continuing to make small improvements. Police add he is alert, talking, and is in good spirits. Meanwhile, we are hearing from a man who rushed to Brown's side after the crash and performed CPR. Dan Verdi tells us he was in the right place at the right time after he saw Brown fly off his bike.
He hit the ground. We were on him, not just me. You know, there was plenty of other folks there helping. Yeah, we straightened him out, and I got right on his to check his pulse and whatnot, and we started doing what we could.
You were also being told Maryville Police Chief Tony Crisp met with Vice President Vance on Sunday to discuss Brown's condition. Maryville Police say the Vice President wants to speak with Officer Brown as soon as his recovery will allow it. All right, next on the 7, the vehicle thought to have fled the scene after 3 people were shot along the side of I-640 early Sunday morning has now been found. Knoxville police tell us the Ford Bronco thought to be involved was found abandoned in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky. This is just outside of Cincinnati. Police previously told us that Bronco was a rental that had Michigan tags. You know, as we've been telling you, the shooting happened on 640 near Gap Road. All 3 shooting victims were traveling with the suspected shooter driving through Knoxville. We're told they pulled over on the side of 640 when the suspect shot all 3 victims and then drove away. The 2 men who died were from Atlanta and Detroit. The shooting victim who survived, also from Detroit. No one has been charged, by the way, at last update. However, KPD says detectives are pursuing some strong leads right now. All right, next on the 7, a Hamilton County man has now pleaded guilty to wire fraud in connection with a Ponzi scheme investigation. The Department of Justice says Michael Harris of Morristown defrauded 52 victims in the Morristown area, stealing more than $1.5 million. We're told Harris operated the investment scheme between 2015 and 2020. The Department of Justice says he convinced his victims to invest money because of his self-proclaimed expertise as a stock trader. However, prosecutors say Harris spent the money that was invested on himself. Harris has been sentenced now to nearly 3 years behind bars. He has also been ordered to pay full restitution to the victims. Next on the 7 tonight, many East Tennesseans are bracing for the loss of Affordable Care Act tax credits that save families thousands of dollars a year on health insurance. But this is not the only program on the chopping block. The Budget Reconciliation Bill, otherwise known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, cut nearly $1 trillion in Medicaid funding, including billions of dollars to TennCare. Now, a nonpartisan think tank is projecting the state could lose between $5 to $8 billion in TennCare Medicaid funding over the next 10 years. That means roughly 24,000 people on TennCare could lose their health insurance by 2034, in addition to an estimated 190,000 who could lose ACA health care.
The single biggest change is going to be reductions to state-directed payments, which account for nearly $150 billion in reduced federal spending over 10 years. State-directed payments are payments where the state instructs a Medicaid MCO to pay providers.
That means that hospitals and doctors' offices will receive less money from the federal government to cover the expenses of TennCare patients, which could put some hospitals at risk of closing.